There's something very compelling about Mondas being just this, an ominous black and white ball with upside down Earth continents. It really allows the imagination to fill in the gaps, and there's something to be said for that. What happened on this planet? You decide. That said, some tangible history was bound to emerge at some stage, and when it did, it was awesome. But it wasn't the only history. Chosen Chimp here. Spare Parts covers it, right? It tells the story of Mondas' descent into cyber madness straight from the augmented horse's mouth, and the continuity between that and the events of the 10th planet are about as airtight as you could hope for. So we're done and done here. Well, no. Because A, at our disposal we have more than one Mondasian origin story, that's an understatement, and B, the more I think about Spare Parts, and don't get me wrong, I love this audiobook, the more I realise that its narrative is flawed in one crucial way. Spare Parts portrays Mondas as a mirror matchup of planet Earth, correct, but it's more like our planet Earth, as in the real one, the one that me and you are living and breathing on right this second. What about the Doctor Who planet Earth? The planet Earth that gets attacked by aliens and moved about in space and infiltrated and all the rest. You might immediately say, well, chronologically Spare Parts takes place in a parallel 1950s, and in 1950s none of that stuff happened yet. True, but even historically Earth was a stomping ground of alien activity. Human events were coerced by all sorts of otherworldly forces, from the meddling monk to Azal and all the in-between. You mean to tell me that none of this or anything similar happened on Mondas? Where's this planet's history? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, let's get into this. It's 1970 and Doctor Who and the Silurians deliver the profound revelation that planet Earth was not always ruled by Homo sapien. Running the show before humanity was the highly intelligent Homo reptilicus, also known as the Silurians. They're not aliens. They are a species indigenous to Earth, adapted to the various conditions of our world in the prehistoric era. They are Earthlings. Look at them there. Greetings, Earthlings, you dig? So, twin planet? Time to put that name to the test. It's the early 90s. The Doctor Who TV product is snoozing indefinitely, but the culture and the ongoing expansion of fiction is thriving. There is no Cyberman origin story in existence, save for the discarded plans of a Genesis of the Cybermen TV story that was never made. Now, Jurassic Park has everybody dinosaur crazy, and an idea germinates in the head of young aspiring writer Alan Barnes. Somebody get on the blower to Doctor Who magazine. The Cybermen, that was literally the name of this comic, was a 25-part series that featured in numerous issues of Doctor Who magazine between 1994 and 1996, and then returned for a final closing Happy 50th Birthday Cybermen issue back in 2016. Well, good luck to me getting hold of all of those. Wait, hang on. Jackpot. And in colour too. By the way, spoilers incoming. If you haven't read this and you want to read this, then don't read, watch this. But when you do, come back and watch the video. Visually realised by Adrian Salmon, the Cybermen, to its credit, is fully and unashamedly insane. Just about the most surreal and dystopian depiction of Mondas as one could ever hope for. Its artwork, whether you're drinking this in black and white or in colour, is incredible. Characters are depicted often as mere shapes, giving the artist room to express the emotional and physical state of his subject through visualization alone in a gorgeously exaggerated and often tormented manner. And humans, when they do show up, ain't the down-to-earth northerners described in Spare Parts, but either religious fanatics dressed in flashy cosplay garb or early 90s cyberpunky looking dudes. It sure as heck doesn't look like Earth. Mondas in ancient times was a very different place, a stark divided land of war and suffering, a hostile ruling dictated by ancient myths. It really sucked to be human here, and it wasn't much fun being a Cyberman either. As for Silurians, yeah, it was just bad for everyone. I'll say it again, this comic is amazing, but as a service to the Mondas canon, well, get a load of these bombshells. First thing that blows the mind. In the Silurians TV story, which has absolutely nothing to do with Cybermen on any front, the Silurian leader explains to the Doctor that the Silurian race went into hibernation because an approaching planetoid threatened to render Earth's atmosphere inhospitable. The Doctor quickly clocks that this planetoid was in fact the Moon, presumably not an egg, and that this prophesied disaster never took place. But here's what it did do. According to the Cybermen comics, because of the intervention of this planetoid, Earth went into a stable orbit with the Sun and Mondas just drifted. Let me reiterate that loud and clear, folks. The thing that caused the Silurians to hibernate was the same thing that caused Mondas to tumble through space, cold and isolated. Who knew? You know, sometimes Doctor Who's continuity is pretty dire, and other times people weave beautiful little threads like that. Oh, there's more. There on in, Cybermen history and Silurian history is intertwined on a microscopic level. The Silurians, aka the Lizard Kings, got decadent during their rule over Mondas during its spatial drift, and enslaved early mankind, and then further augmented them to be their cybernetic slaves. Bombshell number 2. The Mondasian Cyberman headlamp is an artificial mimic of the Silurians' third eye. Oh my word. You want another one? Okay. The Cybermen's plans to return to Earth and leech its resources as seen in the 10th planet? Not their idea. They nicked it from the Lizard King's book of schemes. It was originally a Silurian plan. It was their idea to wait out Mondas' slow trajectory back to planet Earth, the culmination of which we see in the 10th planet, by hibernating. In the meantime, the apes of Mondas ape the apes of planet Earth by becoming rulers in their own right, only to be cyberdized by the new empowered intermingling of cyber servants. It takes just one Cyberman and the remnants of the old Silurian cyber factory to build an army. The Cyberman comic spans through a succession of war between Cyberman and Silurians of all types, as well as the monstrous creatures in their custody. The Cybermen build great cities and effigies to showcase their dominance, facing all kinds of warped nasties along the way, including the malevolent Silurian god, Golgoth, who becomes so darkly fascinated by this new breed of creature that he creates with biblical prose a cybernetic embryo of his very own, a son to carry the cyber race forward. It ends up drifting in space. Whew. And that's what an abandoned idea looks like. You know what's also great in this Clockwise War comic? Not only does it combine and colorise the Cybermen comics in their entirety, but it also features a little write-up from Alan Barnes and Adrian Salmon at the back. Alan Barnes states that this floating embryo was originally supposed to evolve into a planet, which would then be discovered by the 7th Doctor, who would in turn find this creature processing a new race of cyber-Silurian hybrids. It never came to be. Yes, there are comics featuring Cybermen Silurians, but that was on a parallel Earth somewhere and had naught to do with this. Before reading up on this, my immediate lump of supposition, not even close to valid, was that maybe this eventually became the Cyberium, that contained knowledge and future history of Cybermen. I wondered if anyone else thought this, so I pushed Google to the limit by typing in, "Did Golgoth's son become the Cyberium?" And to be honest, Google didn't know what the hell I was talking about, so yeah, maybe not. And also the Cyberium is actually meant to be an evolution of the history computer, the existence of which is alluded to in various classic TV stories, so I'll shut up. But this, my friends, is not the last of the story. So this narrative so far, the war and the destruction and the formation of new life, it comes to a close in hieroglyph form, as discovered by an indigenous Mondasian human goaded by a group of cyber-worshipping lunatics on a planet struggling for survival. Huh? Yep, this is still Mondas. History kind of repeating itself but different, with Cybermen rising from the ashes again. It gets even weirder still when we reach the 2016 Cybermen Reunion special. Same writer and artist, still Mondas, but a different story, and what appears to be, and I think I got this right, two completely different ages of Mondas colliding briefly because of a resident cloud of space-time distortion, to intermingle in a strange repetition of events. Same dialogue, different species, same planet, similar history, over and over. Yep, I wondered too why they came back after all these years just to do that. But, as it turns out, that clearly substantiates something that we may have previously overlooked before. And I'll tell you what, it's a good job that we have the back of the comic write-up from Alan Barnes to clear this up. Pay attention now. This is so cool. I ended up reading a book that I wouldn't normally have touched with a 10-foot cybersaw prod, Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock, a work of so-called crypto-archaeology, which suggested that various ancient monuments around the world indicated the existence of a long-forgotten civilization, wiped out in a global cataclysm. Absolute cobblers probably, but it gave me an endpoint for the Cybermen. What we'd seen was only an intervening period between cataclysms. I think it's entirely possible that cyber civilization has risen and fallen on Mondas repeatedly, each time as a direct consequence of the planet's flight through space. Perhaps in one or more of them there was a genesis of the Cybermen scenario, or something happened very like Mark Platt's brilliant Big Finish audio Spare Parts. I don't discount any of them. They can all be made to work with the Cybermen and each other, if you squint hard enough. You know, I did moan about time loops in the last vid, but I can definitely make an exception this time around. Yes, you can construe this as a plot device to invite any form of origin story ever written to validate itself alongside all the others, but to me it's just incredible to think of this lost, desperate planet, with its different species jockeying for power, constantly rebooting and treading the same apocalyptic ground over and over as it journeys through the depths of space, and passing whatever world-ending catastrophe happens to be in its way. Who knows in time where the Doctor actually really ended up on Spare Parts? There's no orbit on Mondas, no sustainability, no seasons, no real concept of time. The more you think about it, the more a succession of events like this makes sense. And there you go, folks, the truth about Mondas to end all truths. The world where everything happened over and over, and of course you're free to discount it completely if you want, but for me it just fits right. We get a solid history, and at the same time we get the freedom to fill in the gaps with our own imagination. You conceived it, my friends. It happened. Alright folks, tell me what I did miss. Any more Mondasian stuff you want me to cover, or shall I move to the next stage of Cybermen history? Why, I do believe it's the Telosians next. Telosian, I'll research how you pronounce that. Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a good one.